Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Councillor Adja Oba, Cabinet Member for Communities, Harrogate Council, and I'm here with my co-chair.
Hello, it's Marco Barditti. I'm the acting BC commander for the BCU, which is Haringey Enfield.
And we're both the co-chairs of the Community Safety Partnership. So welcome to this meeting of the Community Safety Partnership. Please note that this meeting is being recorded for live and subsequent broadcast by the Council's internet site. Before we move on, if people could just introduce themselves, just the first last names and your role. It's up to you, Hubert.
Morning, afternoon, all Hubert Batten, Director for Environment.
Hi, Will Maris, Director of Public Health.
Hi, Sarah Sutton, Corporate Director for Adults, Housing and Health.
Welcome, Mark Wolseley, Community Safety. Sandy Broker, Internal Analytics for the Community Safety Team. Asia Chakra, Technical Services.
Elena Sintai, Strategic Lead for Community Safety Leading on Hate Crime. And Abby Witchley, Violence Against Women and Girls Programme Lead.
Joe McGrath, Chair of the Harrogate Safety Neighbourhood.
Thomas Sand, Police Inspector of Safe Neighbours.
Joe Bennell, Strategic Lead for Safety and Focus.
Thank you for everyone in person, and we've got a few people online. So I'll go from the list that I have. Adam, we can start with you.
Oh, afternoon all. Adam Brown, ASB, CCTV and Enforcement Manager at Haringey.
Bhavna?
Hi everyone, I'm Bhavna Tejpal. I'm the one of the Community Safety Programme Managers from the London VRU and the Programme Manager for Haringey.
Thank you, Damika.
Afternoon, everyone. Damika Toussaint, Head of Safer and Stronger Communities at the Bridge Renewal Trust.
Heather?
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Hutchins. I'm the Strategic Lead for Community Safety, leading on hate crime.
Lyndon?
Hi everyone, Megan Dyson, Violence Against Women and Girls Coordinator for Haringey.
Thank you. Helen, are you able to hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hi, sorry about that. Hi, good morning. I'm Helidon Topoli. I'm Head of Support and Wellbeing Services, part of Housing Management.
Thank you. Matthew?
Hi, afternoon, everybody. I'm Matthew Knights. I'm the Head of Service for Youth Justice Service, and I also lead on the Young People at Risk strategy.
Thank you. Nahara?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Nihara Wijayasekara, Interim Assistant Director for Housing Management.
Thank you. Shannon?
Hi, I'm the Head of Service for Mental Health within Adult Social Care.
And finally, Susan?
Hi, I'm the Business Manager for Environment.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, apologies.
So apologies have been received from Becky DeFalco, Councillor Dustin Evans, and Karen Brown.
Any urgent business?
None to check.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest from anyone? None? Okay, we'll move on.
Real, thanks. So we're going to go to the minutes now. So the minutes are in the pack. We've got 6 pages. I wasn't at the last meeting, but a number of colleagues here were. Anyone got any comments on any of the minutes? I can go page by page. Page 1, page 2, really comprehensive minutes, I've got to say. Page 3, 4, 5. So show the minutes as approved. Do we sign this copy here? No. Done yet. Okay, great. Let's come on. Membership. Thanks everyone for being here today. This is the point. Is there anyone that we think should be here, or anyone that we haven't included before and think might be a useful addition to the group?
Cynthia from the Probation Service has been invited to that meeting. I'm not sure if you sent apologies. Representation. No, Karen submitted her apologies, but also Victor E. Also be
through as well, just for the minute. I think we also should add the Haringey Community Collaborative as our capacity building partner for the voluntary community sector.
And from the police perspective, Tom, is it Mr. Martin that attended?
Mr. Martin's on a call, cease apologies to Mr. Martin of London. Yeah, and colleagues.
You could adamantly cover both. Sure. Thank you. You will. Top man. Thank you. Thanks so much. We go to the next item then, which is the action tracker. In terms of reference, should we start with the action tracker? Chair, go on.
If it's okay with you, may I share some slides with you, which will lead us through many agenda items?
Do you want to have a couple of actions? Yeah, we'll do this. Okay, great. Thank you. Just struggling to log in. Working out. Okay, yeah. I mean, now, yeah, I can see it.
Any action tracker. For a moment. So the has been completed and what's outstanding. So in terms of action points 1 to 4, they've all been completed. You can see agenda items for the update on young people. Matthew's here to talk about a couple of stations tonight. Much of funding to the standard agenda item that's on the agenda. Invite MOPAC and the VIU. Babner's online with us, which is great news. Next action was about clarifying the priorities. You'll recall from the last meeting, we looked at the strategy. There were 7 areas of priorities, being distilled down to 4 priorities now. A bit clearer. Identifying key outputs, outcomes, and impact of priority areas of focus. Workshops being held in relation to all those priority areas. Theories of change being completed for each. It's work still ongoing, but the intention is to be able to demonstrate activity and deliverables that take to that ultimate goal in relation to those 4 priorities. So that's good. Action point 6, a standardised agenda. You will see from the agenda that we now cover off the priorities at each meeting and statutory priorities at each meeting. The expectation being that there will be a motion for each one of these CSPs to travel. Next one is around statutory representation. We spoke about classification. And there is a gap around the London Fire Service, and I've been trying to get hold of the fire commander and the emails keeping bouncing back.
Contact details we got, yeah.
I think mine was a chap with the surname Wilson. Action point 8, the expansion of the membership to include the chair of the Safe Made report, which I was here today. I've got a note here about you made the note chairs about the Haringey Community Collaborative, but also around what the young people have discussed. Okay, leave up from there.
Yeah, and young people, I had the pleasure of being invited to the council meeting last week. We had the really excellent speakers, young people from across the borough, who were standing for election for the cabinet as well. There were some brilliant candidates there. Positive voices, some were 18 years old, so they might have more availability to come during school hours. But as a suggestion, we've got some brilliant candidates there who are engaged, infused, and just really great campaigners. Right. So that could be an idea.
We'll notice that.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful and useful, Chair. I wonder if we could engage those young people in terms of inclusion in the Safe and Input Board and other community-related activities. That'd be really useful.
I don't have the details, but there was a lady called Natasha, and she's organised it and worked in it with Councillor College.
Having their details, but whoever is responsible for linking in with them, that'd be a useful discussion.
I don't have the details, but I think
I'll use it along.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. I'm taking note of that.
That's it.
The details. Thank you. Next action point, revisit terms of reference for Community Safety Partnership. That's the agenda item that follows. Template quarterly reports. You also see within the body of papers that you've received, the template reports. You can see the majority of our priorities and statutory responsibility. The actions going forward, AP 11.3 to 14. That's really, if you like, the flight path for the next 18 months. So that includes a light touch strategic needs assessment for 2025. So that we'll be working on that to take us forward for next year. The crime and disorder survey to look about how we seek views of our communities, but we should, by statute, crime and disorder survey So bearing in mind political cycles, that's July 26. And then a more comprehensive strategic needs assessment at the end of 2026 to inform a new community safety partnership strategy from 2027 onwards. So that's the flight path. That's future. Action.
Thanks very much. That takes us on to terms of reference, which is the same agenda item.
So rather than, I didn't chuck the whole terms of reference into the slide deck. All I've represented there are the main headings for the terms of reference: purpose, function, statutory duties, responsibilities, and so forth. I should not go through the whole screen. But basically that lays out responsibilities like as a community safety partnership. And the invitation would be to agree to that terms of reference side there. Even now, if folks have the chance and opportunity to read through them, or set deadline by which time that should be sought. Yeah.
The deadline sounds good. And in relation to the pack, pages 11 onwards, does it correlate to the slide there?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So
you'll see within the terms of reference there's an appendix which talks about engagement protocol linked to terms of reference. That's principles.
So 7 days, is that 29th, I'd say? Close to play 29th? Right, that's good. Close to play 29th of October. Yeah, excellent, thank you very much. Anyone got any questions on the TOR at this point at all, Martin? Yeah.
Okay, so next item, client overview of partnership funding, Sandeep.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so just very briefly, just looking at some of the client performance overview, some of the key statistics. I appreciate it might be a bit small on the screen there, but I should run through some of the key statistics there. So you'll notice there is some green, there is some red on screen there. There are a couple of updates actually since this date it's actually together, but I can just also highlight what might be worth knowing. So for some of the key client measures there, you've seen a small reduction in burglary, 3% in the past 1 period. You've noticed there on that data there was a 1% increase in robbery. However, since the data was published, I've re-reviewed that, and the new data set actually shows it had quite a significant reduction in the past 4 weeks or so, actually leading to a 9% reduction overall in robbery, which I think is a really positive direction to travel. Some of the other crime types there, which are shown in red, you'll note that things like drugs offences, possession of weapons, generally they are, I suppose, proactive offensive, whereby when there's more activity, we tend to see more of those types of offences being recorded. So seeing an increase in those might not necessarily be a negative, as it's more offences being discovered rather than necessarily more crimes occurring. You will note that one of the areas of concern potentially is around sexual offences. We've seen a rise in that, an 18% increase. London has also seen some challenges in that, 10% up at the moment for London of that same measure. And also theft, we know is a big challenge for the whole of London. Essentially, that's mainly things like shoplifting and things being stolen from you is a really big challenge at the moment. But overall, in terms of some of our performance, there are some positives, there are still some areas that need further attention, I think, as well. But unless that just shows where we sit according to London, and generally speaking, we're not far off the London average for most of those categories. When we look at the overall geographical picture, so Harringay is nearly just under 30,000, around 30,000 crimes in the past year. That's a very small increase compared to the previous year, but overall over the last few years we've seen a downward trend overall. We've seen close to 35,000 a few years back, so to be under 30,000, well, that's clearly 30,000 too many. That is an improvement of the old term, small short term spike in that. So overall, we're seeing about 11 highest rates in London, so the 32 London boroughs, so we hope to be lower down, but nonetheless, 11 is a bit of improvement compared to where we were a number of years ago. You can see geographically the map there showing the volumes of crimes in the whole of London. You can see that Harrogate will be the top middle of that map there. Does have, as I mentioned, a mid-level volume of violence. Some of the inner London boroughs do have higher volumes of violence, of open crimes. Within Harrogate, you see on the next slide some of the location. So on this slide, which is showing on the screen now, the spread of crime across the whole of the borough. Generally speaking, we do see high concentration from the east, the likes of Northumberland Park, as well as Luton Park and South Tottenham. And also Knowle Park being the largest volume contributor overall crime. One of the particular drivers for that is the fact that lots of theft offences take place within Knoll Park and Green, being obviously a busy football area. That is one of the biggest drivers behind Knoll Park, being a large contributor to crime in the borough. This looks at antisocial behaviour, which is very quickly in the interest of time. So looking at antisocial behaviour across the whole of the borough, very similar to the crime picture. You can see the distribution of that, again, Knoll Park and London Park being the highest volume in terms of antisocial behaviour. No real surprises when you compare that to the overall crime picture as well. You'll note there are some rules, for example, Bruce Castle has seen quite a significant reduction, 27% reduction reported ASB year on year, which is quite positive. But on the flip side, the likes of London Park has seen an increase, 20% increase in reported ASB. However, there are further nuances to them. For example, we had a clear on build, not going within London Park. One of the key things we'd like to do is increase community confidence, and that might mean to increase reporting levels. So seeing that increase in London Park may not necessarily be a significant negative factor, but it's something worth monitoring, I think, over the next few months and over maybe the next few cycles. That's the next slide. So very briefly now, just looking at, I know we touched on looking at violent disorder surveys, things of that nature. Also, MOPAC, Mental Police and Crime, conducts what's known as a public attitude survey. There's a number of different measures within that, but one of those measures is quite, I suppose, a very blunt question, but it basically says, do you look at you do a good job in the local area? And for that, currently, it's actually sits at 15th. So 16th will be mid-table, so pretty much mid-table for London for this piece. So currently, 45% of local residents agree that the police are doing a good job in the local area, and that actually matches the London average, 55%. That's actually a 4% improvement year on year. Whilst that might not necessarily sound particularly something to celebrate, if you consider just a few years back, Haringey was perennially bottom or in the bottom 2 or 3 boroughs for this measure, that's a really significant improvement in the medium and long term, which is kind of interesting. In particular, when you compare ourselves to the likes of Camden, Lewisham, Islington, who are the lowest ranked, you can see we've got a 10% positive kind of differential as compared to Camden by this one measure, which is quite positive and is a tracking going forward. So I think those are the slides.
Anyone have any questions?
Just one on possession of weapons. I know from the previous slide that that's in 26%. You know, what it's down to, is that down to stop search or banned or carrying weapons?
I take weapons down to like a positive indicator of finding weapons. You don't get any statistics. I mean, drugs goes up, drug rate goes up. Questions going on, clear whole build, and the knife accelerator schemes and on Martello and stuff like that going on in some dog operation. Anyway,
We running some comms campaigns around weapons, that kind of stuff. Is that something? Yeah, there was a bit of comms around that, but I don't think it's sustainable. But something we pick up on it.
You've got 4 bins now again, haven't you? 4.
Yeah. Two home office.
Yeah, we've talked about it like clean up build, haven't we? About getting some more funding in and give up. It's like more bins out in the right places, not to increase fear of crime, but to improve drop-offs. Actually inspected one with Green outside St Paul's Church. I sent to it about 3 weeks back. It was full of stuff. It was really good. But people have wrapped up kitchen knives and carving knives in paper like we told to. They dumped it in there. We had some machetes in there in the sheaths, wrapped up in tape and paper. So following the rules, still got a little bit of waste in there, a little bit of refuse, but it was good to see it being used. So.
I think Tom touched on the question I'm going to make around the impact of clear hold bill on some of the performance. Because the clear hold bill is proactive policing, so I would assume weapons like that. So that's part of the drivers there.
I think so. I mean that and some of the other operations across the borough. They've got the bits in part 1
And we've got the stuff going on at Seven Sisters we're doing as well. So I think all those proactive operations feed into that.
Anyone have any?
What observation about Nile Park being like the top of the crime volumes and so forth? A lot of effort going to Northumberland Park. Just think maybe you've got to keep an eye on Nile Park, maybe for the next CSP. Just thinking about what does it actually look like in terms of Nile Park? What are we doing in terms of Nile Park? Is what we're doing in Northumberland Park having a detrimental effect on Nile Park and crime figures? Just mindful of those big volumes.
I think the Wood Green side.
On the side, as chair of Nile Park ward panel, it's a question I've asked, and I think the statistics include activity on the high road as well, and that can push it up. It can give a bit of a false impression to people who don't understand. Not you understand, but the people who might just look at that and think, "Oh my God, Nile Park is really bad." It is, but it's the profile includes the high road.
I was just going to ask about the sexual sexual offences. I think it'd be good to understand a little bit more around what might be driving those significant increases.
This is a question I asked last week at the Safe Neighbourhood Board when Chief Inspector McLean shared these statistics with us. And because sexual offence is a very broad umbrella definition, I wanted more detail. And he said he would share that with us. I think we have what was shared here as well.
As an action you could take to have that explored, and certainly perhaps here the org agenda, ensuring that it come just for as an action.
Any further questions, points? I've just got a few as well to raise, but I thought anyone else have anything to add? Yeah.
Just on sexual offences board, issue of the board, just grateful to the people in the room that were at that meeting yesterday as well. We're starting to look at public events and venues, so not just Spurs, but Ali Pali as well. So looking at Spurs, Ali Pali, and bordering Drumshed, I know it's Enfield, but it's a very porous border. Suddenly you're in Harringay. We're just trying to get as much good data as we can from our side regards calls that we're attending. What the nature of that is. We know we need to do more with the health sector as well to see LAS calls that they're attending as well, but also people that are bought from venues to hospitals. So we're already working for those 3 venues. I met Drumsheds last week, and we went to visit Ali Pali today in the morning to speak about their protocols. Spurs is next, so just to reassure everyone, it's work that we're working on to get quality data into us all. But we're conscious that a lot of these venues are putting in increased licenses and attendances will follow with that, and the variety will follow. So anecdotally, we're now looking at what different types of events bring to us. So football, we think we know it. No football. If it's a domestic fixture, we get the crowd, get the dynamics, we get a certain type of offending. When we get European fixtures, that can sometimes export certain types of crime with it as well. But we're looking at that, aren't we? And for things like big big music events like Beyonce at Spurs, we know that suddenly gives a little bit of surge of internal crime reporting with our sex offending. So we're looking at that very carefully, and then we hope to bring that data in.
Just coincidentally, I got an email from Tom Hospital yesterday. We've been invited to add to their nighttime charter, board nighttime charter. On their list of attendees, I don't think I saw the police being represented. So I'll take that as an action to ask that the police are represented on that particular board. And I've also circulated to our board colleagues a question from LGA about initiatives in Redbridge with a significant success. We've got a toolkit regarding board, so something to look at as well.
On that point as well, there's a boxing event coming up at Spurs, so I just want to know whether there's going to be a police presence and if there is anything to fill that.
Yeah, I can guarantee we'll have a police presence. Go on, Tom.
There is a significant police presence, and there's a neighbourhood presence as well. But not extra up and down the highway, outside of the footprint as you get down towards policing. So you've got a safer neighbourhood uplift on for those areas because the event occurs just down footprint. the safety around stations is quite.
We coincide that just for record with Enfield, obviously, because that border's a small border. So we make sure it's not displaced and that we've got coverage both sides over the top as well.
So I just wanted to just bring 3 points based on the presentation. In terms of theft, I know there's a lot of work going on in Wood Green between the Wood Green bid and police, and I think that's really helped issues related to theft. But I'm just wondering on Tottenham High Road if there's something similar happening, because I know there was a summer program around Seven Sisters, and I know there's a lot of work happening around the transport hubs, but just along the high road, is there any work with the businesses around there?
Over summer, as you said, there was a summer sort of pilot Martello, which is within that footprint. And Tesco's on the high road there is one of the best shoplifting stores in London. We've had our teams, proactive teams have been, although they've identified a lot more shoplifters, with our detection rates gone up, the amount of people getting charged gone up to about 20%, I think. Before it was about 4 or 5%. Tesco's Tottenham High Road, opposite Seven Sisters station. So yeah, so we're doing a lot of work with that venue because that's a massive generator of crime in that area. We have one of our proactive teams working along the high road there. Some programs being now digital program as well, so we've got one there as well.
And is there a bit of consent happening? Because I don't feel like there's been much information going out there to the public that this is happening.
One of our main issues it's got. We have been putting stuff out on our Engage platform, but obviously that depends on how many people signed up to it with businesses. So we're trying to increase our sign up around the businesses and the high roads.
Just got 2 more points, Joe, or is it related to this one? Okay. Second one is regarding the clear hole build. So again, I see that Thornton Park is ranked quite high up, and this comes to a point of concern for me as a ward councillor and as a community, is that we have the clear hole build. It's been over a year, and it's just concerning that we're still at the point where Park's the highest ranked, despite all the resources going on there. In terms of that whole element of community confidence, I feel like residents are still not confident that things are progressing and there are improvements. So visibility is a factor, and then being able to, have some kind of comfort and reassurance that police are doing something to reduce crime in the area. I think that's a great area of concern for us. And thirdly, in terms of ASB, I know it's going to be discussed later on, but I really do think that PPSG is a really good platform for us to discuss ASB. I know it's kind of being more reactive in terms of areas of concerns based on casework coming through, but I think kind of need to be more strategic. I know, Mark, you're going to be mentioning that further, so just wanted to make that point. Gerard?
Yeah, so I'm a bit confused about the bid and its role in particular Wood Green. I've raised queries about this before. I don't understand the structure of what they deliver. I'd be keen to see. I don't understand who funds them and who they're accountable to, and what are their performance indicators look like, and how do we judge outcomes. And for me, as a resident involved in this, I want to tell you what I think is that it's a waste of money, and I don't see any good outcomes for our community in what they do. I just don't know that they're an unknown entity as far as the public are concerned, and I don't understand how they fit in the context of community safety partnership.
It's good feedback to have. Unfortunately, we don't have a presence of Wood Green Bid here to give us that information, but maybe we can add them to the invite for next time, or we can, make a request to our economic development team to provide more information for us.
And do a presentation. Maybe they can come and do a presentation about what they are, who they're accountable to, who funds them. There's lots of unanswered questions, and there's something. I've got a feeling that it's not right. So I'd like to understand it more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, I was just going to say alongside that, Chair, it might be worth inviting colleagues from the Shaping Green activity that we're doing as well to get a bit of on the work that they're doing, because that relates to the kind of wider kind of safety resolve some of the issues there.
Further questions before we move on? Okay. On to priorities. Item 9, Mark.
So just a couple of slides on funding, just for an overview. Shall I go straight?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of partner funding, as you can see, we have secured funding, as we probably heard previously, previous meetings with MOPAC and VRU, for some really vital partnership funding, which totals close to 3 million, I think it's 2.9 million over a 4-year period, which enables us to continue doing some of our key work and also build that learning to further enhance some of that. You can see how it's split across the piece here. I won't go through all of these line by line. I would say that we're making the best use of this funding that we do have. I know we have your own colleagues on the call, so I guess the plea would be that if there's any additional funding that we can utilise, we can highlight the fact that we still do have significant concerns around some of the work that we could be doing further if we had additional finance resources. Anything that the VRU would be able to offer us to enhance this would be certainly well. But you can see that on screen there in terms of how that. And finally, here you can see some further just information around the MyEnds funding and the current foot piece of work. You can see there that there was following the initial round of funding, there was further funding which was around £800,000 from May 24 to 26. Again, you can see partners involved in that Bridge Renewal Trust, Robert Wilson, and the others listed on screen here, delivering some of that work in and around Northumberland Park.
If I may, I think there's an opportunity for us as a partnership now to scrutinise the activity and so on. Is the partnership setting the right activities and deliverables to reduce disorder? Because there's an opportunity regarding MOPAC funding to reprofile it.
Just on another point, Matthew just said that it's quite difficult to hear people speaking in the room. So if everyone could kind of speak up, I think it would help everyone online. But yeah, does anyone want to make any comments about the funding? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So we've got Tamika, who's got a hand up. One of the lead for MyEnds on VRU. So
Tamika?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that we've been approved for the funding for an extension year for year 3, 2026 to 2027 for the MyEnds funding.
Thank you, Tamika. I think it would also be, if the partnership are in agreement and finds out what the outputs and outcomes are from all this funding. I don't know when we can bring it. But Tamika, it would also be interesting to find out what the outcomes are from your funding as well from the VRU.
Yeah, we could bring that potentially in the new year. We start wrapping up the year of the programme, or the last 2 years of the programme even.
Chair. So Matthew, Jackie, my colleague, and myself and Joe sit on a steering group. We met yesterday for kind of an update. So maybe as well we can ask children colleagues who can lead to support that. Not only me, yourself, and Catherine Paragon to talk about that one. So if you can bring that back.
Yeah. Any further comments? Okay, we'll now move on to priorities. Mark.
So you'll see the 4 priorities that are coming up, and there have been reports submitted by some leads across our partnership. What I've done is I've tried to summarise them, and on the right hand side you'll see an assessment that either red, amber or green, and this is indicative of some success factors. I won't go through every single bullet point for the time, because this in itself is a summary of the report. But in relation to ASB, we sent this moderate progress and status. There's good multiple collaboration, including the PPSG, closure panels, case reviews, and the like. What I would observe is that we've got to recognise the opportunity to have a look at the PPSG and to see what tangible outcomes of the 40-odd cases that have appeared over the last quarter. as an example. We recognise also that a gap has been created regarding the CMARC. We've got resourcing by the police was no longer possible. But I think that's starting to see some gaps and creaks in the system because we've got our multi-agency meetings that are taking place now, persons of concern meetings related to violence, social behaviour, related to mental health and the like. And so I just want to note that. I'm reading through victim-centred outcomes, limited data that's available for certain areas to work in terms of ASB, enforcement prevention of mental health cases, the community engagement. We've got to the war panels that council officers also attend. Key achievements, the ASB case review protocol that follows is for agreements. In other words, that's the formal statutory process that the partnership oversees. There's a paper within the pack, and the invitation will be that that gets approved at this meeting or again within 7 days. Closed panel approved 9 of 11 applications over a period of 3 months. The whole build successes, and so staggering success around Rothbury by the implementation of closure notices, 95% reduction in antisocial behaviour within a small area to be celebrated. And there are case studies which are within the notes of this slide there that I will circulate. Risks data, mental health is an emerging area of concern, and that was to be at the general item at some point in the future. Chair, I think from the last meeting, because we were concerned about right person, right job, and the role of the police. Opportunities, MOPAC funded officers. First officer started, second officers due to start imminently, so that's a 4-year funding stream. Adam's online, but he's worked very, very closely with housing and other colleagues in relation to a tough enforcement role done in Ross Leading that will again enable the ASB team to grow. And the North area is going to be a pilot for a Pickering and NPS, which is good news. The plans suggest a strategic development task and finish group to provide more direction via strategic needs assessment for ASB. In other words, bringing partners together, task and finish group, just a deep dive. What are we trying to achieve in terms of people, processes, and place? And to develop the PST to part for resolution issues raised. So, for example, you get a location concern. Currently, we show it's complete, but actually, that's the so what. It needs to show what was the outcome. I think partnership. So, we really want to strengthen the PPSG to something more meaningful and to a good conduct. So, the ASB strategic group, I'm not going to go through those. There's the first lift of what it's about. There's an ASB case review protocol for folks to consider as well. Again, maybe to be agreed within 7 days, because it enables us. For example, Adam shared an ASB case review, I think it was a week or so ago, big learning exercise for us, involved LQ housing, but it's learning about the process and the outputs and the outcomes.
Thank you, Mark. Any comments? Gerard?
Mark, I'm just trying to understand the, do we have a victim support service or provision against it?
So victims of that sort of can make contact, but actually we're not as strong as we should be. There are opportunities to grow that support. And again, that's the reason for having a bit of a deep dive into outcomes for victims of antisocial behaviour. Who are they signposted to? There's also other charities such as ASB Health, which people don't necessarily know about, but they can approach ASB Health for support. And we need to get that right. So I think there's a need for that more strategic work to look at it. And then report back to
There was a standalone service once for victim support in Harringay, wasn't it? I recall.
Yeah, so that was funded, it's like that funded by management, which was the so as well as the ASB team. However, they had support that was due to what's cuts with services.
I'm just keen to try and understand and ensure that victims' voices are heard, not just in the adult system, in the youth justice system as well. Because I'd be interested to hear from Matthew at some point what the victim management, empowerment deal is in that service as well. Because many years when I worked in that service, they did some very good work with victims and about young people understanding how to respond to the victims of their own offending. but how to manage and support victims in various ways. So I'd be interested to find out more about that.
Matthew is on the line. Matthew, did you want to make a comment regarding victim support in the Youth Justice Service, or did you want to kind of tie that into your report later on?
No, I can answer that now, actually. Funny enough, I've actually been reviewing our victim offer and what that looks like. Within Youth Justice, there's actually now a strand from when we get inspected that specifically focuses on victim work and what that looks like within Youth Justice. So there is much more emphasis on victim intervention, support services, etc., than there ever was in Youth Justice. So funny enough, as of probably next week, there will be on our webpage, there'll be a separate section specifically on victim support services across Haringey for victims of crime. And then a number of different initiatives that we're doing in regards to youth justice, in regards to victims. So we have a victims worker who contacts every single victim that we have details of, details, and it will all be offered a restorative justice process. Without going into too much details now in terms of what they all looks like, on our webpage it will kind of highlight what that looks like in the future. So yeah, so answer to your question is we have a robust offer, and it's something that we're looking to expand and focus on in the next year.
Thank you, Matthew.
I think it's really impressive that the youth justice system is doing the way I think it should be done, and that should be reflected where possible in the adult system. Thanks, Matthew. That's really helpful.
I've just got a few comments to make, if that's okay, Mark. Firstly, around the closure orders, I know it's been really helpful in Rothbury, but I've been informed previously that it's quite complex around the south to do closure orders. Is it a possibility to do it? Because residents have been asking for it.
The problem with the layout, Rothbury Walk is different. It's designated, defined blocks. Salb is lots of outdoors, lots of ins and outs, and there's a few blocks that we probably do them in, but that wouldn't solve the issues on, like, say, Altair Close, for example, and the surrounding events and all that, because they're all exposed to the outside. It's got to be a sort of, I think they've done them in Enfield, but they're open space in the defined area where they've found also doing them in that area. We've looked at, we've got our DLS out with, and they've said it's not able to do with it in there. You could do maybe some of the individual blocks without just push them into the outside space outside of the doorsteps, which is where most of the issues are happening in that area.
And then secondly, I just wanted to hear from the partnership about if we are going to look at ASB strategically at the PPSG, how you would want it to look like. What do you think we should be doing looking at it strategically? I just want to get feedback from the partnership, because I've got a certain view, but I just be interesting to know partnership things we should be focusing on. Should it be high risk wards, or, you know, so it's just, I want to kind of get feedback from the partnership, seeing how we should be utilising PPSG, focusing on ASB more strategically. Yeah. Adam?
Afternoon. Sorry, just a quick point. I did put in the chat with regards to victim support. Yeah, ASB do use and utilise victim support North London. We don't have a bespoke point of contact anymore. I think that predates my arrival. But you know, they are really good at both providing the standard victim support for victims of crime and ASB, but they're actually quite proactive in terms of representations and advocacy for some of our victims, even kind of high harm neighbour disputes and hate crime and harassment. They're really good on that. With regards to the closure orders, we are currently about to try and push the boundaries a little bit on behalf of housing, and particularly Olive Morris Court. We are going to explore whether we can try and see if we get any pushback on doing an entire estate closure order. Obviously, Olive Morris Court is made up of kind of individual ferry containers-esque with no defined boundary in the same way that Salb is, but we're going to try and do this as an internal corporate one to see, just as a proof of concept, what pushback we get and what the technicalities are. So we're always trying to evolve our approach and try and resolve a problem. And obviously, if we do make that work, and it's a big if, then obviously we'll be looking to see if we can replicate that across our other high ASB areas.
Thanks, Adam. Mark?
I won't have anyone to make a comment about the PPSG with Joe, because they currently chair the PPSG, the direction of travel. If I may just, I see multiple demands and multiple opportunities for identifying areas of concern that could mitigate demands perhaps made by local councillors, for example, saying they're concerned about this area, and often they're perennial problems. So I think there's an opportunity to amend the agenda and subject matters, as well as refer into that meeting. But I'll stop there and perhaps Joe and Adam to me.
And I guess for me, I think there's a couple of things. I think we need to be data led. So I think PPSG can't be a catch-all for the whole borough. I don't think we've got the resources to do that within the teams themselves. And so if the focus could be around where the data tells us the problems are, you know, unfortunately, a lot of those problems are. So that's one thing. And I think we kind of need to put it on the premises and places type model. Dedicated staff working within those delivery groups to not only get the delivery piece done, get the resolutions in, closure orders, whatever needs to happen, but also to measure the impact and monitor the impact activities. And I could envisage a scaled down PPSG with a more strategic focus and with operational groups that sit within that report up to the PPSG, and then the PPSG report to this board in terms of the outcomes and impacts learned. That's just a summary, but I guess it's a lot more work. We've already had a workshop on this as well, as Mark said. So we've already kind of threshed these ideas about. But yeah, maybe Adam, I don't know if you've got any comments, Adam.
No, I think first and foremost, I mean, it's a great partnership vessel. I mean, having worked in a couple of boroughs, it's got great buy-in. You've got a lot of collective experience. We've got a lot of doers and people who can make decisions there. I think it is just about realising that perhaps we can't juggle all the plates all the time, and actually we need to start working a bit smarter. Focuses on those high harm, partnership, reoccurring, persistent ASB, whether it's thematic, whether it's geographic, whether it's an individual, and maybe trying to chip away at those to actually try and reduce our ASB rather than just managing cases across the borough, cases and issues. Because I think, you know, if we demonstrate the work we've done in Clearhold Build, we've looked at our 5 most problematic individuals in the footprint, our 5 most problematic residential addresses, and our 5 most problematic businesses. And in 3 months, we've taken quite robust, or a variety of action that includes some robust action against those individuals, to the extent where Inspector Hassan and I have sat down in the last week and agreed the next 5 for phase 2 and the next 5 residential addresses. And to me, that may well be, going forward in an uncertain world, that may well be a better strategic use of our operational resources. We would just have to accept perhaps that the slice of the pie may not be even everywhere, or we may have to use the evidence to justify more of an intelligence-based approach.
It's like, I like the PPP idea, premises, people, places, and then like we can judge how we're doing. We can collect the stats as we go. As long as we've got a process that builds in the previous 5 to make sure that it don't come, if it's 5 people, that they haven't come back and re-offended. So we've got that library of knowledge, really. But I think that's a really good way to approach it. We normally do things in 3s in policing, so look at the local authority, things in 5s, shows everything. So I think it's good. It's good to go 5.
I think one of the things that's come about Clearhold Build is people comms and how that impacts on residents' perception. Even though we might see a focused approach in arrests, I don't think we're too good at getting those messages out. So I'm trying to do a product in Clearhold Build in the group that I need in getting those confirmations out, because, you know, rightly wrong, we lose a perception in the right residents that, you know, there's the issue. So I think to go together with addressing perceptions, but also addressing that communications.
Yeah, I was just going to ask around what thoughts on the kind of major drivers of the ASB that we see in the borough and where the kind of prevention angle. I'm assuming drugs and alcohol and mental health. So it's just, I suppose that goes a bit beyond the people, premises, place, and think about prevention things that we need to get in place. We often hear about a particular specialist input those residents who may be important. So
Just to say, I think this goes to the strategic direction of the Community Safety Department around prevention as we go forward, thinking 27 onwards, is to have an approach that's looking about universal prevention. In other words, that's all population levels. Secondary prevention, where it's for vulnerable people at the cusp of offending and so forth, and then tertiary when it's all gone wrong and they are at high risk of becoming a victim, high risk of causing harm. I think it's just a different way of thinking and addressing different strategies. And I'm an advocate of that, and that's the direction I'll probably see the Community Safety Partnership for 2027 onwards, but start.
But I also think it's important to highlight any gaps, because I recall we had a meeting a few months back about mental health, housing, and kind of gaps in the system, especially around comms between various services. So I think that's something that needs to be explored as well. I'll come to you, Sarah, after Matthew, and then Sarah.
Yeah, thanks. Just wondering in regards to ASB, with all of the intelligence we have and all of the good work that everybody's doing in regards to ASB across the borough, just wondering, do we know how much of that is translating into people that have received a CBO, criminal behaviour order? Is this something that this board oversees in terms of what that looks like in terms of the data? It's just quite interested just to look at the differences between adults and children that are receiving CBOs, and just whether this board looks at that.
The answer is no, but the answer is it should. And again, that's why having a strategic approach about how you break crime and disorder starts to get, and I call them widgets, but those outcomes now for CBA and CBWs, whatever the intervention, we should be counting those. Don't be some very robust systems. The partnership has less robust systems.
Yeah, I'd be really keen to explore with you guys, specifically around obviously children under the age of 18, CBWs, CBOs, etc., just to look at that and how that can be continually monitored across both this partnership board, but then also with the Youth Justice Partnership Board as well, because I think it's key that they are translated across both.
Yeah, I just was going to come in on the mental health point. Really keen to explore that, and I know that that the sort of health representation was supposed to be the ICB. Actually, I do wonder whether that is the right thing, particularly as most of you will know, the ICB is changing its function completely. It will take much more of a strategic role. North Central London is going to merge with North London and become West and North London, and I've probably got that the wrong way around, North and West London ICB, and I think it's going to kind of actually its ability to be able to be the most strategic health partner in the space. Therefore, I wonder if we are going to have some focused work on mental health, whether we should seek representation from the they are just going through a big change. And in November, are moving to a different model of delivery. So at the moment, they've got all services within borough boundary. They will be moving to a care group model, and we will have a need strategic lead for us, who will be at the director and exec level, and that will be a chap called Mark Pritchard. And I think if the partnerships happen, take by an action to talk with him whether he would be happy forward, and I think actually that direct relationship with the provider, rather than it being significantly removed with the ICB, would add a lot of value.
That input, Sarah, I think we should, as an action point with future meetings.
Sorry, and apologies if it's a common question, but do we think that our links between ASB and VORB are strong enough? Because I'm just thinking, when I worked in Oxfordshire, the overlap could often be quite significant in terms of like experiences of domestic abuse, or like ASB can be linked to like sex work or like sexual harassment on the street. Do we think we've got enough of a link there in terms of putting stuff into place to tackle it, but also intel to shape the rest of some of our other work as well?
Talk about system with the board. Absolutely right.
Joe,
that's right. And it's like open space activity. It's like there's no offence of staring. But we know that we have people that stand and stare, and it can be oppressive, offensive. trying to prove this crime. It's really hard because it doesn't get reported as a crime. We're not using street stats or street safe. Street safe never really got off the ground, did it? Not in the. It didn't give us the stats that we needed across Harrogate or Enfield for that matter. So I don't think we've got the data for it yet. We talked yesterday at Walpole about could we run like a policing operation for local authority, pick a section of road, do loads of engagement, do some local authority enforcement. It's like a broad spread of, and we'll talk about cafe premises, won't we?
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah.
Street side paper license cafe premises, to sort of test the theory. We'd be happy for policing to test the theory to see whether that generates more data, and it might generate more crime reporting. I think we've got to be accepting that it might increase our stats, but if we get the quality stats that come in and we identify that we've got problem premises or a problem area or borough, then that's good that we identify that. Yeah, I did set actually this day's meeting to that be developed across both boroughs.
Yeah.
But if we want, we can repeat the action here again.
Yes,
So
so
we
we
can
can
report back.
junction on the
Great.
civic.
Brilliant. So glad I'm a jet stone that, so it's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, just on that point, do we know if we are reporting this?
I don't know, that's what I'm saying.
Is it showing stuff?
Not really, no.
So how do we then encourage people to report? That would be the key for them.
And knowing that something would happen.
Exactly, yeah. And using things like MetaEngage to publicise that we're doing stuff, that we've done stuff, and maybe doing street surveys, we're thinking. And then we talked about Harrogate Safe Havens as well. I'm not sure if the Safe Havens collect data, but we've got a good network of Safe Havens. It gives us a chance to republicise it again. And we were thinking about high streets. That's what we were talking about, not about the big venue, but high streets where you've got the multiple venues. To and from school runs, is there timings that affect us?
Yeah.
It's
Uncomfortable, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah. I've got daughters that work in Enfield. I was saying Enfield, I don't know. but I will go and pick them up from a certain restaurant they work in, and I'm worried as a parent sat there. So that's why I'm sat for 2 hours and I wait for them to come out. If it's not, and that's just next door to us. So if the problem's there, it's here as well. But we just don't have the statistics, the crimes to work off. We love working on crimes, but we just don't have them. And yet people feel uncomfortable. Our officers and support staff coming to work feel uncomfortable across North London. So it's a work.
Before we move on, Sarah, this is more observational than anything else. You've been doing a piece of work with adults and the referrals that come in from the police on radars, or which is what you call it. There's something for us to look at there, because quite a lot is being, it appears to be referred into adult safeguarding, where it actually either doesn't really sit in the safeguarding space or it's community safety, but it is potentially linked to all sexual offences, brothels, etc. And I've had one that I've seen recently, which I'm happy to share with you, Martha, which actually looks like it's a modern slavery. And I can't see any evidence that it's been put through NRM as duty to notify because consent wasn't given. And I don't think we've got that bit quite right across all of our agencies. And I think there is a VAUG, there is sexual offences angle to that, and a bit of a modern slavery angle to that. So I think a specific bit of work around what's coming through there might be.
Just on another point before we move on to hate crime, I don't know what the link is like between the board panel meetings and with our community safety clinic. If we are looking strategically on ASB, I think it would be really helpful to get data from the ward panels across Harrogate, just to see what the priorities are within each ward, you know, what the outcomes have been, so that we can work towards that as well. So that I think will be helpful. I don't know if there has been a link previously, but I think we should be linking up.
I think that's a good point, Chair. We're in the process of setting up a ward panels chair network in Harrogate. We did this many years ago when we had the community consultative group under the predecessor for MOPAC. But it worked well, and that sort of information would come out of that as well. But it would be helpful when we speak to our police colleagues on safe and neighbourhood teams to look at that as a priority in every ward panel. I think it should be a standard priority, but I think it's a really good point.
All right, moving on to hate crime.
I might slide slightly. That's a couple of slides. Let's talk about the levels and the activity shot. Just well. Yeah, but if I read very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just that the volume of activity taken across the partnership in terms of the number of consultation affairs. We're concerned about falls in reported levels of anti-Semitic crime, also homophobic crime, and Islamophobic crime as well. And there's a suggested action on the next slide that we need to try and understand that report back to the partnership. That's quite good. So there's commentary about increased support for victims of witness of hate crime, engagement with the Orthodox community, which has taken place. Christian Muslim Trust visited the borough. It's a new forum for looking after the safety of the Muslim community, which is welcome.
Sorry, Mark, I think they want to hear you much clearer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So that might be okay. I'll try and project my voice. And in terms of multi-agency working, we're aware of multi-agency pay groups that take place across the borough. In terms of risks, low confidence in the authorities, we see that as an issue. Rising tensions, and we've seen that in the last 12 months and more recently. Long term, we're worried about underreporting, may skew the data, hinder our effective response, and disengagement from various communities is a risk as well. In terms of opportunities and plans, there's an anti-Semitic graffiti strategy that's appended to this. I've just invited, I've shared this with Mark very briefly about the challenge around Markfield Park in particular. We know it's reported, well, the community report it, maybe not to the police because it never gets translated to the crime level, so we need to get a better grip on that, and the strategy that's appended to hopefully tackle that. And the next suggested item is what actually is investigate the reasons behind the fall of hate crime. Not very longer. There's the draft hate crime strategy that talks about the immediate response, and this is regarding the graffiti in particular. Immediate response, community safety and reassurance, prevention, environmental design, and so forth. I can say even after the in the last month, so additional remote deployable cameras, proof of deployment, certain areas. Hopefully, got a picture and able us to capture them. I'll stop there.
Yeah, because of time, I think we'll go through all the priorities and then we'll go to comments from there. So, Abby, do you want to all presenting for?
Do you want to? Should I?
Yeah, go for it, Abby. I've done one slide, I think, on this.
Okay. So currently ranked green, and so we've got kind of 4 priority areas, 4 pillars of our strategy. The first of those is the coordinated community response. So we're working to improve that with our safe haven. So we're redeveloping and relaunching our safe haven scheme. The first session of this new training is going to be delivered on the 20th of November. So we should have some more safe havens in place after that. In terms of prevention, we've got the Protect Our Women programme. I don't have the stats here, but we are, I think that's across both primary and secondary schools in the borough. It goes across east, central and west. And we've got a new training programme in place. So we've got half-day sessions on identifying and responding to coercive control and the DASH risk assessment as well, alongside some other kind of specialist training, particularly in the 16 days of activism. So we've got training on so-called honour-based abuse and responding to victims of violence of diverse backgrounds. So that helps with our prevention element of it as well. In terms of provision, we had, I think it's just under 300 referrals to our community and accommodation-based services in Q1 of this year. So the uptake of that is good. What we are recognising there is a bit of an under identification of young people experiencing abuse and using abusive behaviours in their own intimate relationships. So that's something that we need to be improving. And then also with the provision, we are in the midst of reconditioning our special services as well. And then in terms of this focus on perpetrators, we are working closely with MOPAC around CARA, which is a behaviour change intervention as part of a conditional caution scheme. Numbers are really quite low at the moment, but they are looking to include other VCVs going forward. We are part of that pilot, which is really exciting. Domestic homicide reviews or domestic abuse related death reviews are something that we have to do, the CSP has to undertake. We've currently got, it says 5 on the table, we've now got 6. So we are about to be starting a 4th new DHR panel. So yeah, these were the stages. One we need to bring to the Community Safety Partnership as soon as we can, so we can get that to the Home Office QA panel. But the rest of them, there'll be 4 DHRs in the very early stages. Oh, there's more. So risks and barriers, commissioning with specialist provision has been really interesting. Can't say too much at the moment, but there will be some insights shared as soon as we can. As I'm sure lots of us have heard about, there's lots of work going on around women who are sex working on the street in terms of additional vulnerabilities and the need for improved pathways to support. Demands of DHRs, like I said, they are a statutory responsibility and they do take up a lot of capacity, both in terms of initiating and maintaining that panel and the documentation, but then the follow-up, so that oversight of those actions and recommendations and ensuring that they are achieved. And then I'm sure we've seen with the the far right protests, there's a lot of that Protect Our, I don't want to call it that prevention programme, but a lot of concern around FORG and keeping safe spaces safer for women. But actually, there is a fear that that could lead to a decrease in reporting in affected communities, so let's not stigmatise their parts of families. So that's what we're going to have to keep an eye on. And we are developing our data dashboard, so trying to really have a look at what data we are collecting and working on it to collate that so we can get a dashboard in our strategic board. And then in terms of priorities for the next quarter, so we've got a 16 days of activism, that's from the 25th of November to the 10th of December. We've got our Walk for Women on the 25th, starting at Stroud Green Library and finishing at Finsbury Park. But we've also got, maybe like 6 training sessions on in that time as well, and there'll be more things as well. So working on that, and again, working to improve the response to those involved in sex work, all new DHRs, commissioning services, and the needs assessment. So we're redeveloping our board strategy. We're in that desktop review, rapid needs assessment part of that, but we'll hope to have a job pretty early next year.
Before I get to you, Gerard, is there any other priorities we need to cover?
It's just serious violence.
Yeah.
Just have a factor. So there's not a natural lead in terms of serious violence. So I just thought it was important we revisit the definition just for the board. It's on the screen. So any violence and exploitation affecting young people under the age of 25 also includes domestic abuse and sexual violence. As well as further details. And it's quite specific in terms of the serious violence definition. Here's some data which coincidentally I spoke to Sandy last night in terms of what it actually looks like for us in terms of violence, serious violence. And the data obviously shows us reductions in non-domestic abuse violence within injury, which is good news. Reductions in youth violence victims, which is good news. Reductions in robbery, which is good news. Slight nervousness around gun crime increase. And other data sets tell us there's been a long-term reduction. Haringey is the 18th highest in terms of volume of violent crime, which is good news when you think about Haringey as part of London, though it still remains high in terms of youth crime. In terms of highlights, what I would say, excellent in terms of product that supports the North Area violence reduction movement. Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate it in the North Area. Significant BIU project work in respect to prevention, serious violence and exploitation of young people. Night crime project work. There's the accelerator project, which we were landed with by the Home Office about 2 months ago. We hope to get about £200,000 worth of funding to deliver some initiative in the Seven Sisters area of long-term prevention. Focused activity, care, hold, build. There are get risks and barriers, which are the gaps regarding 18+, in other words, the focus. Gaps regarding reduction of reoffending. Again, that's particularly regarding the 18+, not young people. Assessing performance and relevance around the 6 outcomes. The serious violence strategy is 6 outcomes. And just a slight query and nervousness around the relevance of some of those. And so Opportunities, Youth IOM project, the rationalisation of the serious response strategy. So priorities are next quarter, ensure that adult reoffending in respect of 18 plus is subject to more scrutiny, assess performance versus serious response strategy, ensure a competent delivery plans in place, and a suggestion that there will be an agenda item at CSP for the future, just get more of a discussion around one particular subject. Entered through.
Thank you so much. Gerard, and then open to everyone else for comments.
I just wanted to check in terms of delivering services to trans women. What have you got any updates on that? And what does that look like?
Yeah, so with the Supreme Court judgment, we don't actually anticipate that affecting our provision for trans women too much at all. So we have commissioned a number of specialist providers in Haringey. We've got one provider that's very strictly women-only service, legally speaking. The rest of our services are trans inclusive. So what we need to do is make sure that that's explicitly stated on their website. For legal reasons, they have to say that they are an inclusive service. Trans victim survivors are able to access those services. We also include in that. We've got the LGBTQ specialist service, so there is a choice there.
That's really helpful. Nice.
Yeah. And in terms of our recommissioning, our specs, our service specifications outline that we're seeking support for all women, biological and trans.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Any further comments, Will?
Yeah, this is more on the hate crime and the BORG updates. I'm really concerned about the online space, and it's changing all the time. We had a summit on smartphones and online harms. We had a speaker who works with the event nationally, and he was saying, you know, particularly young men and boys, what they're exposed to now, sort of gone past the sort of Andrew Tate, very clear influences with misogynistic messages, and a lot of content has subliminal or sort of under, you know, not explicit messages around misogyny, around anti-Semitism, and the ways that we have targeting hate crime quite locally are good. You know, we work closely with communities, but how do we as a partnership first of all get an understanding of that online space? Because actually we probably not people who are targeted. So what is our response to that, and what is the kind of national response to that? I think it's a situation for us, because I think particularly for that younger generation, that is what is driving. We're hearing about in schools, you know, that's becoming, go back to 30, 40 years ago, 40 years that people are making homophobic comments in schools, misogynistic comments, racist comments. And so it's just thinking about that, and we may attack. I don't know, because I'm a bit of a dinosaur really. I want to know how we respond.
I think that's quite insightful, because that's something that we don't really explore. Like, we do have forums and events that we do, but online, I don't know if we've really explored that.
So, good question. So we've been seeing this for a long time. So ideology, work in person events. So as I recently had degree, you know, part of the better rap trainings and so on. She does training with teachers and young people. The misogyny, it's our ideology, and we do feed in the hate crime stuff as well. So last week we started a training session around polarization in classrooms, and I'm only touching on that because of the focus on anti-Semitism and hate crime. What that is what we've seen in the last 2 years is that since October the 7th, rise in anti-Semitic hate crimes and Islamophobic hate crimes within the borough, but really, really crucially in schools. We're hearing that young people are really struggling to voice how they feel. They don't feel like they have a safe space to speak around certain subjects, especially international conflicts. So when we speak to teachers, teachers have their feedback to us that they don't know how to handle these kind of conversations within the classroom because they're not equipped to that. Conversations around Israel and Gaza, for example. So we've started a training with our event education officer in collaboration with the hate crime team to really speak to teachers around how to handle it. Actually really put a focus on reporting hate crimes. I think there's been this really thin line between teachers seeing what's happening on playgrounds as bullying, rather than hate crime or hate incident. So they're dealing with things within classrooms and schools, but nothing's been reported to us. So we are continuing to have conversation with Jane Edwards as well with education, and really putting focus out to schools to say, whatever you're seeing, you need to be reported to the police before anything, but also we're here for advice, and we're going to continue really putting focus on anti-Semitism. More importantly for me, I think I'm continuing is that we address having difficult conversations and talking about national and international problems. Even this morning, we saw what's happening in Dublin outside the Asylum Hotel, and that even plays a massive role in what kids are talking about in the classroom. But yeah.
Eleanor?
Sorry. I heard most of that. I just wanted to add in, I wasn't sure who raised the point around the online space, sorry. But I believe the individual who attend the Online Safety Summit, we are working with them to deliver a project over the next 18 months to professionals and parents around the risks of the online space. We also do a lot of work with parents in schools, and we have another project from the Prevent side of things, which is obviously the more extreme version that hate crime can lead to. So making sure that parents know how to look at parental controls, have the conversations with their children, know what the risks are, the incel issue that is online, but also other content that comes in. I think there is a wider response in terms of the government around working with sort of social media platforms on this, but we would have little control sort of on a borough level. So in terms of that, it would be working together with any information that comes out from that partnership, working and implementing it, and making sure that we're sending the messages out there and providing the support to those who are identified. We also do assemblies with young people from Prevent to make sure that schools and young people know what to do if they hear this language, not around criminalising young people, but educating them on what is and isn't acceptable. But we do have some projects that link to that, which will be running from now until for the next 18 months.
Thank you so much. Sandy?
Just following on those points around hate crime, earlier this week, Century met that they're not going to be investigating non-crime hate incidents.
That's right.
They'll also be recorded for now, but they're not going to be investigated. So I think for the online aspect, that might play a role in terms of perhaps those not going anywhere, and therefore victim confidence. By that, other time. Yes,
Well, yeah, we've good to report it because we've got a record. We can sometimes track back the link to a chronicle. But you're absolutely right; they're not going to be investigated. We do monitor Islamophobic, faith hate crime, and anti-Semitic crime, particularly on this BCU, particularly because we've since Operox, what we've referred to as, which was 7th October 2023, and since then we've had an increased instance of fear on the BCU. So just to reassure you, Harrogate do get additional resources, but they get additional vigilance as well. But yeah, not hate crime incidents will not be against crime, but supported. Thank you. Okay.
One, because the point being made, and I think it should be encapsulated in action, and perhaps this was seek reassurance the online challenge is integrated to respond to the hate crime. We've got some reassurance. It needs to capture that, I think, as an action. To make sure it's embedded and delivery plans, otherwise it might get lost.
Yeah, no, I would add to that we have an understanding, an up-to-date understanding of what what the trends are and how it manifests. That would be the starting point, I think. That's important.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just one more.
I'm just going to make a brief point and Bill Van offline, but I think some work with some other, I know there was a hate crime event, really positive but then we've got a number of community groups and organisations that support migrants. I think potentially doing something with them around anti-migrant worthwhile, and we are looking through the work in the resettlement team at potentially a collaborative event for International Migrants Day on the 18th of December. That might be a good opportunity, and some of that getting our message about.
Finally, because this weekend we've got a demonstration that's been banned in Whitechapel. So we're going to do it somewhere. It's likely they'll come to Harrogate Enfield, but thank you. Okay, we'll go to item 10 then. So I'll introduce now Matt Knights. Hello, Matthew. Thank you very much for the paper as part of the pack. I was the Deputy Chair of your Youth Justice Board, so it's really nice to be here. This is home territory for me. But Matt, if I could hand over to you, we are a bit pressed for time. So if you could summarise the salient points on the document, so at least it's time to discuss it as well. But over to you, Matt.
No problem. So just to check, how long do I have?
15 minutes.
Okay. I will summarize the first part really then. So having a Youth Justice annual report, we always bring it to the Community Safety Partnership Board to ensure that our strategic plans are aligned. So each year this is a statutory function for us that we have to produce a strategic plan to the Youth Justice Board, and it is shared across different partnership boards. So essentially, as a quick overview, there are a few key summary and achievements that I'd like to just share with you guys today. So the Youth Justice Strategic Partnership Board has a thematic approach within our governance arrangements, which has really deepened our understanding of the trends and areas of focus to target on to improve outcomes for children, which has kind of led to some of the initiatives that I'm going to kind of speak about now. So one of the achievements that we did last year was that in partnership with the police and Enfield Council, we with Wood Green Custody Suite developments completed in regards to looking at a child first friendly custody suite. So this was the first child first custody suite in London. So that was it was a long process, but it was officially launched last year, which was really good to see. The YJS have led on an audit which focused on children arrested and outcomes for those children, which is basically leading to changes in practices across the system, specifically around youth justice service, children's social care, the police and early help. So really ensuring that no child is kind of falling through the net at point of arrest, and that there was a robust partnership response to those children. In addition to that, we now in our partnership board, we have stop and search data that is now coming to the partnership board, which is really good to understand, interrogate, and look through a child first lens. There is a continued commitment on a number of different workshops for children and parents and carers on some topics, specifically for youth justice, focusing our 16+ cohort and building our work on those children that are not in education, training and employment, and our partnership with Dusty Knuckle and enhancing that project, which has been a good success. In terms of some of the kind of KPIs for us, we get measured on a number of children that are sentenced into custody. Last year, we only had one child that was sentenced to youth detention accommodation. This is the 5th best in London and joint first in our family and statistical neighbours. So this is the best stat we've had in regards to children sentenced to custody. In terms of other national indicators around reoffending rates, we are the 4th lowest in London, which is a good thing. We have the 4th lowest reoffending rates. This is significantly lower than London average and also England average. So our average was 4.45. London average is 3.31 and England average is 4.3. So what that shows us is once we do have children that are engaging with us within the youth justice system and service, they generally don't go on to reoffend. My next point really is around those children who have received a youth caution. So none of the children that received the youth caution with or without conditions actually went to reoffend at all, which is really good. And of the 65% of children supported by the Youth Justice Service, 65% of them were in full-time education, training or employment by the end of their court intervention or disposal with us. And in looking at achievement for those children, we run something called the AQA units, which is like an accreditation scheme. And last year we had 34 children that had received an accreditation, totaling up to around 92 different units. So we had 92 units that were given to our young people last year, which represent one child getting more than one AQA certificate for a number of different workshops and initiatives that they've done, which is really good. So this year, this is our second year in our plan. So it's a 3-year plan. This is our second year now. So each year we'll be reporting on terms of what's working well and what's not working well. And we report that into our board. And then we kind of make sure that that information is then sent to Community Safety Partnership Board as well. So that's one hat. That's the Youth Justice Annual Report. As a quick summary, I only have a few minutes just to kind of go through that. And I guess one of the key functions I wanted to share with you today was around the partnership work around NAFCRIME. So I'm just going to bring up some slides on my screen. Oh, that's the wrong one. One sec. Got a number of different documents open. Okay. So in May, many of you might be aware, and apologies if you've seen this already from me before, but in May, there was the National NAFCRIME Awareness Campaign Week. And as part of the Young People at Risk strategy and the partnerships, we looked at how we can all contribute to the campaign, but from a Haringey perspective. And actually, what would that look like? So we want to focus from a Haringey perspective. What would that look like? So this is just an insight impact report to show you what we did across that week. So essentially, under the Young People at Risk Network, there's a number of different statutory and non-statutory organisations that attend those meetings. And the whole focus was to look at a systems approach and to look at across the systems how we all could support. We came up with 4 different pillars, really, in terms of what we wanted to focus on. There was going to be an element of enforcement. There was going to be an element of education, young people engagement, and also other initiatives which include training, etc. as well. So without going into too much detail, but we kind of, in terms of the data itself, what we know is that out of 32 London boroughs, Haringey was ranked 6th highest for youth violence, 4th highest for NAFCRIME, 11th highest for NAF injuries to young people, 7th highest for robbery, and 1st for gun crime. This is at the point of when we did this data sets, and the 1st highest for firearm discharges. And we really wanted to focus on the NAFCRIME element of this campaign week and what we could do to try to disrupt this. So throughout the week, we had 28 planned activities across the partnership. We started off with, on the first day of that week, we had a whole timetable that was developed, and out of that timetable we delivered a key evidence insight presentation to 110 staff in children's services, looking at the local and national picture of NAFCRIME. So that was completed with myself and Sandeep, who supported with that presentation to give colleagues a more of an understanding around what NAFCRIME looks like in Haringey and national impact as well. So Haringey Children's Safeguarding Partnership had taken up the opportunity to look at knife crime, but through the lens of a victim. So I've been leading on a multi-agency audit focusing on five victims of knife crime that had presented themselves into our local hospitals, and looking at what key learning there was from their admittance into hospital and how partnerships had responded to those victims. And that report is going to be published next month. So that can be brought back to this partnership board at a later date. There was a Wood Green Crown Court workshop, up to 30 people in attendance, which I'll kind of speak to you about after. We had an organisation called the Vanguard Service that delivered 2 trauma impact of knife crime from a psychological perspective workshops to staff. The Youth Mobile Hub was raising awareness around knife crime, and our health schools program training day for the designated safeguarding leads. We delivered the key insights to knife crime to them as well. And also we had a facilitator delivering county line workshops to them on that day. All of this happened within the week. Some other key partners, just to mention, to the Godwin Lawson Foundation, supported with some sessions around knife crime awareness. The police and enforcement supported with some stuff. I'll come on to this a bit more in detail. We partnered with Benken Seller Foundation, who have really lead on the Knife Crime Awareness Week campaign. And we also linked in with Trading Standards and focusing on test purchasing for knives, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. There was a number of different comms that went out in preparation for the week of action. We were mentioned in a number of different avenues. We had our own webpage that was talking about a number of different initiatives that were happening during the week. We were also in the local press about it and making sure that residents were aware around what we were doing during the week and how Haringey was going to be having an approach for that week. In addition to that, which I'm not going to show you now, and I'm sure CouncillorOvat probably wouldn't want me to show because she's actually on the video, but we did have cabinet members support from Councillor Bamazon and Councillor Ovat, and they shared the support for the week as well. So there's a link to there that people can view after if they wish to. So before the week, we had the youth service led on consultations and creative workshops via our youth mobile hub that is located in outside Wood Green station. And they created a canvas to honour the life and legacy of Stephen Lawrence. So you can see here, you've got the leader of the council, Councillor Bramazan, and you've got the corporate director of children's services, and you've got also Stephen Lawrence's mum that also came down from the foundation to support the cause for that week. So that was a really good launch for us in terms of the week. From a police and enforcement perspective, we had high vis patrols in 4 key hotspots across Haringey. We also had 3 weapon sweeps across Haringey as well in key hotspot areas. These hotspot areas and the weapon sweeps, and the hotspots for high vis patrols were based on intelligence that we knew about across the borough. So we based it on intelligence. We had the police also supported with knife crime personal safety workshops in 3 secondary schools, and also led on a peer action group workshop as well throughout the week. You can see at the bottom here, we actually had 3 knives that were seized from Love Lane Estate near White Hart Lane Station. And these are, these are some of the pictures from the knives. So it was a really good outcome in terms of removing some of the knives that were obviously in the community that were accessible to some of the residents. The Gordon Lawson Foundation engaged with 2 schools to raise awareness. So their focus was looking from a victim's perspective and building empathy and increasing understanding of the wider implications of knife crime. And they also was a facilitator at the Wood Green Crown Court event that we also held as well. They partnered with one of our other partners, Tottenham Hotspur Foundation. So Tottenham Hotspur Foundation run a weekly Kicks program, which is a free football education space for children to come to each week in some of the highest deprivation ASB areas. Godwin Lawson Foundation partnered with them and delivered some of their workshops at the actual KICS event, which is a really good way to merge sports and knife crime initiatives as well. We had a visit to the Benkinseller Foundation that week as well. We had a parenting webinar that Benkinseller ran as well, and there's also a staff webinar that's people attended throughout the week. Street Doctors delivered 2 workshops which focused on supporting and educating children around managing bleeding and unconsciousness. There was some feedback from the participants, which I'm not going to go through here, but we focused on the 2 youth hubs in across Haringey, Rising Green and Bruce Grove, and we delivered to 17 children across both of the youth centres during that week as well. As I said, we engaged with trading standards, and in engaging with trading standards, we wanted to focus on test purchasing for knives. So 25 retailers were contacted to introduce them to the responsible retailer scheme. 1 retailer actually sold a knife to a child. So we had test purchasing. So the police cadets actually was part of this exercise, and they sold a knife to a child under the age which they shouldn't have. So an investigation was taking place in regards to that, and there will be potentially consequences for that store or shop that sold that knife. We had 6 retailers that had test purchase visits by trading standards and the police. And 6 retailers in Haringey have now joined the responsible retailer scheme. And what this means is that businesses must commit to the following best practices for storing, displaying and selling knives. And this initiative is around collaborative effort between trading standards and the police and to promote community safety. So that was a really good outcome for that week as well. In terms of the next steps, there were a few things that came out from the week is that the Godwin Lawson Foundation were doing a football tournament, which they were going to be hosting in July, which they did. And it was held in partnership with Tottenham Hotspur Foundation at the Tottenham training ground, where there was around 110 children that attended that. We've been engaging with a number of different organisations to look at promoting workshops in schools in regards to knife crime. We're working with and engaging with the Royal Free London NHS Trust, who are working across Haringey and Enfield, looking at tackling knife crime across the partnerships. As I said, there's going to be an audit report going to be published next month, hopefully, that will be focusing on the 5 victims of knife crime. We had the weapons surrender scheme in Haringey, in White Hart Lane, Recreation Ground and Tottenham Green as well. And we also had the FAS Amnesty mobile van in Wood Green, which is supporting the weapons surrendering scheme as well. And then in addition to that, we've got the ongoing Youth Echo and Home Courts initiatives to capture young people's voices and focus on knife crime awareness as well. So without going into too much more detail, you're aware it was discussed today about the weapons surrender scheme and what that looks like. So this is Faz and some of the guys here. You can see lovely Hubert there as well, and a few other colleagues who attended that launch to support with the community, not just young people, but the community handing in weapons with no questions asked. And these are the 4 areas of where the Ninja Sword surrender schemes bins are, which are in red. And the purple is where the knife surrender bins. So there are 2 distinct differences. The Ninja Sword surrender bins obviously cater for the bigger knives and machetes and swords. The smaller knife surrender bins are the ones that we've had in a while across the borough, which we've been engagement and worked in partnership with community safety on in terms of delivering that initiative, which has been great. So I will stop there for any questions.
That was really good. I'll just summarise. I watched this from afar. It was excellently led by you. Thank you. Energised and precision delivery. So thanks, Matt. some great outcomes there, great work, foundations to do next year's life crime awareness again and to build it into daily work. So thank you for the board. Thank you for that. Any questions for Matt at all? Mark?
First of all, Matthew, really detailed presentation. Just want to pick out a couple of things, if I may. First of all, I think the reoffending rates are quite staggering, and I think there are lessons to be learned. We need to explore that under reduction of reoffending programs. Probation service aren't here, so I just want to congratulate you on that. Ninja Swords, I want to say thank you, Sandy, for your work on that, because that's a massive project. Difficult working across lots of planning departments and highways and the like. And I've got a question here, which probably it's an observation you made, Marco, is about making this into daily work. Because the question I crafted myself was, how do we reconcile the high harm violence levels with the youth justice work once a young person is in the criminal justice system? Because the youth justice system, which Matthew oversees, is achieving incredible results. But we still have those at the sixth highest in London in terms of those high harm crimes involving firearms and the like. I think the trick is actually embedding into daily work, ensuring daily work, that early prevention piece across schools, universities, is how we work with education to make that strategically available across all our primary schools, all of our secondary schools, for that long-term aspiration to ensure that violence doesn't happen, not maybe next year, but maybe 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 15 years' time. And I think this is the opportunity for the Community Safety Partnership to lay its marker to deliver that in that period of time. Big mind.
Excellent, thank you. If anyone's got any questions for Matt outside the meeting, send them an email, I'm sure he'll respond. Oh, Will, got a hand, couple of hands. Jared first and Will.
Okay, an observation here is that it's clearly a lot of really good work has gone on here. I also can't help but notice in the background of the financial
challenges.
Matt's done very well on this, and I just wish that that could be reflected across the council. But I think he should be congratulated on doing this work in that context.
Absolutely. Thank you. Will?
Yeah, agree. Lots of excellent work. And Mark, regarding your point of how successful we are when people are entering the justice system, and yet we still have high rates of crime. We've also got really high rates of young people not in education, employment, trade. And it's not something, that's just one outcome we could look at as a community safety partnership, which goes well beyond the work that Matthew is doing. And, somewhere like Northumberland Park, 40% of adults are not women. So, it's thinking about some of those drivers and how we give alternative pathways, which is already in the system. But I don't, we need a much wider group, and there may be lots of work going on in that space already. Thanks.
That's you.
I think the point Will made is very timely in that the question was asked earlier, what can you do about drivers at ASB? Those drivers, I think, impacts lots of us. That preventive early intervention approach, I think we'll see tackling long-term prevention issues. I think we'll tackle some of those issues that I'm good definitely ASB knows stats regarding the Northumberland Park. Majority of that. Your leadership kind of across council is just to focus on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Come to
So
Mark
Marco,
now.
can I quickly just mention one more thing? Sorry, I don't know if you could see me. I would like to just reiterate what Marco said, really, just to thank community safety colleagues for supporting with a number of these different initiatives and working with the different partners across the system, because it has to be a systems approach. And I think that in able to deal with some of these issues that we're all speaking about today, we've got to do it in partnership. Share resources, whether that's financial or just resources in general. I think that's just going to be key in terms of moving forward. But yes, we're to just reiterate that point.
Cheers, Matt. Nice one. Mark, we do 12.
Yeah, we can. And my apologies to colleagues who've submitted reports that have been summarised because there's a lot of notes. But it's a really important. I think the partnership actually has the opportunity to scrutinise and make an assessment. So. Legal statutory duties prevent substance misuse and reduction of reoffending. I'll keep this very, for prevent, actually, thanks to the work of Alan and team, it's a solid green, I have to say, a very, very solid green. There's good governance around the prevent approach. There's the prevent delivery group meeting that's chaired and does a regular deep dive. It has home office benchmarking, doing very well. There's a minor observation about what's the expression, aggressive environments, and some work that's going to be a priority for the future. But that's very minor in terms of the level of work. The channel panel's working very, very, very well. I'll stop there on prevent unless there's anything Al wants to mention online.
No, just for time. I think the only thing I was going to mention was just one of the priorities will be around training, and it is a conversation that we do need to think about in terms of staff across all our partnerships and the levels of training, but we do pick it up in the prevent delivery group. But risks around that, and including action counter-terrorism training. So most boroughs, it is something that is regularly delivered, and we're falling a bit behind on that. So I'd just like to note that something to pick up at a later date, I think.
Which is an action just from that very next meeting.
Yeah.
ACT training, you've got iconic venues all across this borough.
Yeah.
And I'm a counter-terrorism security coordinator. You are washing targets here. So we can show that up. Ali Pally has done the training rejections today. Spurs better than, but us, everyone in faith communities we've got as well. Potential targets here. So yeah, Manchester show the state could be anywhere.
Also take an action for actually spell-checking a room. Challenge. Sorry. Anyway, combating drug, and again, this is a self-assessment submitted by Sarah in Will's team, and got some more KPIs there. Target to achieve their 2,100. They've got the current 2027 in treatment. They've got some figures there in terms of making progress, 4% versus 45% in London. Continuity of care, again, slightly below the London average. Working with ASB enforcement and police regarding closures, really good close working relationship across the system with these. Highlights the current panel development. Thank you, Adam, again for that. Multi-agency hotspot meetings, continuity of care improvements, risks and barriers, none reported at the moment. What I would observe, though, is I think in terms of lots of our priorities and state responsibilities, I think there's an opportunity to better present data that tells us how many widgets we're delivering, working with, but what the outcomes and outputs are. So just, I've written that down. Something for us to look at. Priorities are written down there. Facilitate the concurring panel, introduction, dedicated concurring officers. Again, that's with that program integration. Was there anything else to cover off on that one?
Yeah, so just the Combating Drugs Partnership has been a real success in terms of partnership working. So on that first target, that's the number of people overall in drug and alcohol treatment in the borough, and that was one of the things we received extra funding for. So we started off with a baseline of around 1,500, but made really significant. And our improvements in other outcomes around when they come back into the community. However, I think when we talk about antisocial behaviour, and when you speak to people working on Island Park, there is still endemic, systemic ASB linked to drugs and alcohol. So I think the stats on treatment recovery only tell us part of the story. So it is how we triangulate it with that kind of local, very local intelligence, and it is a lot of hard work, as I say, taking that people placement assist approach. So there's a real link here with the ASB core element of the strategy.
Reduction of reoffending. So I know, as being charitable, I wrote not assessed at the moment, because this assessment does not apply to people under the age of 18. We've heard from Matthew in terms of service delivery. But what I would say is we don't have a reduction of reoffending strategy in place. That's one of our responsibilities, so we need to address that. There are various approaches to offender management, such as MAP, integrated offender management, but their efficacy is maybe not been tested and scrutinised, so there's an opportunity for us to do that. And opportunity to ensure focus of our integrated offender management takes into account the local priorities. So do we know what they are focusing on in terms of the IOM cohort? Is it relevant to our priorities, domestic abuse, whatever it might be? So risks and barriers, there's opportunities to tackle and address those most likely to offend, or an opportunity to turn up said, an opportunity to have a better look at them. That's more political. to integrate reduction of reoffending strategy to combat substance misuse, where your point about substance misuse and drivers of crime and so forth, so maybe there's an opportunity for that to be better integrated. So the suggestion is implementation of a reduction in reoffending delivery group based on nationally recognised framework for interventions, the 7 pillars or something in relation to for reduction of reoffending. We need to seek some reassurance that covers education, training and the like, and develop a working strategy for improvement by the CSP along with clear performance indicators. Second slide there, and there's a terms of reference for reduction of reoffending partnership, which I'm not smart. That's only 10 minutes to knock out. And I think it's really, really important that we do take a bit of a deep dive on the partnership is aware of contributing to crime disorder and paradigm. That's it.
Very much. Should we go on to sick leave strategy, line 12?
That is in essence the final part that I discussed earlier on, as we passed to the back in points 11 to 19. So that's a strategy in the plan for the future. Good stuff, you know.
Other business, or anyone want to make any comments before we do finalise meeting? Okay.
Can't be finished on time. Still can't believe this.
So these are future meetings. The meeting will be held after in January or February 2026. So you'll all receive invites for that. And as mentioned, if you do have any comments, please do provide comments within 7 days. To Naz and to Mark. But yeah, thank you everyone.
It's back.
Well,
yeah, Max. So much work.
Are you going to the thing about
Yeah, you would do
This is like our